What's up, everybody? This is Smokin Joe Radio Show coming to you early on a Friday morning. What's up, everybody? We want to talk about something that's all over the news. You had to see it by now. Simone Biles, U.S. gymnast. First off, this is not about her mental health issues, or pulling out in the Olympics. I feel as if this is a decision that she and she alone can make, and it's not up to any of us to make that decision for her or judge her for it. So I want to kind of get that out of the way and move on and go with what I think is a more serious issue. And it comes with nationalistic and racial overtones, and that's the scoring of Simone Biles on the difficulty of her moves. It seems as if the FIG, which is the International Federation of Gymnasts, I don't know why they pronounce it the FIG, but FIG isn't bad, right? Apparently, they have deemed one of her moves too dangerous and that no one else can do it. So therefore, she shouldn't be rewarded with difficulty points for it because they do not want to encourage other people to try this move. Now, this goes in direct opposition of what they did in 2006 when they changed the scoring. So I had to do a little research on scoring for gymnastics because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know anything about it. But luckily enough, because of situations like these and scenarios like these, it makes me want to look more into it. It makes me want to understand gymnastics a little more because it sheds a light on it. And it pointed out something to me that not only is happening to Simone Biles, but it's happened to athletes that were beyond their competition all throughout time. Athletes who were so far above and beyond their constituents that rules were made against them. So first off, we want to look at how do they score and how do they judge gymnastics. Well, so when they revamped the system in 2006, they moved it to base off of two scores, a D score and an E score. The D score being for difficulty, and the E score evaluates the execution of the move. So as the points would accumulate for the D score, they would not subtract for failing any moves for trying them, as opposed to the evaluation score. You would start off with a base score, and if you failed to do moves, it would go down. Kind of archaic when you really think about it, but hey, there has to be a way to score something that's so kind of wide open as this is, right? So before 2006, they had moves that were based on a letter score, A through super E or whatever it is, maybe H or I. They kept adding on to it. So they would categorize the moves, and if you did these moves, you would be rewarded a certain amount of points for these moves. So, post 2006, they changed the rules because they wanted athletes to try more difficult moves to help push the sport, to help progress the sport. So here we are in 2021, and Simone Biles is progressing and pushing the sport and pushing her constituents. And what do? You punish her for it. To me, this doesn't make sense. The whole point of you changing the scoring was for people like Simone Biles to set these new bars, to set these new heights, to reach for greatness and do things that no one has ever done so she could be recognized for them. But instead, you ignore the rules and then you hide behind the guise of safety. Now, just so you guys know, the International Federation of Gymnasts is it's not in America. So of course, outside of America, they're going to be like, yeah, wait a minute, these Americans are crushing us, right? We need to do something about this. Like, do not be fooled for one instance to think that doesn't happen. So when they see an athlete like this, that is so good, that is doing these things, there's a move that she does it's called the Biles that men don't even attempt to do. All right, she is a generational athlete, and the fact that she gets but she does not get rewarded for trying things that are above and beyond, trying things that help progress the sport. You know, some little girl, some little boy is watching her when she does these moves, and you know what they're doing? They're thinking of new moves. They're thinking of how to chain those moves into other moves. All right, you're now stifling the sport by nerfing her talent, by bringing down her talent. This is like putting a governor plate on race cars in NASCAR. Different podcast. We'll get away from that. This is trying to keep a level, balanced playing field when there shouldn't be. You know, this isn't for participation trophies. These are the Olympics. These are the best of the best. These are everybody's best people from their country representing them. And all of a sudden it's a problem when America is by far head and shoulders. I mean, we're talking about a sport that is normally decided by tenths of a point becoming blowouts because Simone Biles is crushing the competition, crushing them. Like, they don't even have to, like, they would have to, like, do some miracle move that's never been done and still may not even beat them. It's that ridiculous. So when I saw that, you know, and I saw people talking about it, I had to look it up, and I'm like, man, they're right. Like this does happen because, you know, Simone Biles is not the only athlete that has had rules made against them. So I went back and I did some research, and I'm going to kind of start back a little bit earlier in time in baseball. Back in the early era of the 1920s, pitcher named Ed Walsh. Ed Walsh was one of the most dominant pitchers ever with an all-time low ERA of 1.82, right? 1.82 ERA, all time. You know what his pitch was? The spitball. Yep, the spitball, the outlawed spitball. Clearly it worked, right? They didn't want him having all that action on there. But it gets more. There's more. There's names on here that you're going to recognize once we get a little further, you know, closer in history. You may recognize this one. Chocolate Thunder, Darryl Dawkins. Yeah, from Planet Lovetron. You know what's up, man. So Darryl Dawkins broke the backboard in 1979 with a ridiculously powerful dunk. Just shattered it. And then a week later, he did the same thing. So, you know what the NBA did? Well, they probably didn't want to keep replacing backboards, and I don't know how much they were back then, and you know, it wasn't the multi-billion-dollar industry it is now, so they made a rule that if you break the backboard, you're going to get fined and suspended. And it just so happened that it limited Dr. Dunkenstein, as he was called, from Planet Lovetron. I mean, that's like the dopest 70s, like, just basketball name ever. I know there's a lot of them, like World Be Free and other ones, but dude, Dr. Dunkenstein from Planet Lovetron. Man, if that don't want to make you go look up highlights, then I don't know what's up. But you know what? That basically nerfed his talent. And he said, you know what? He was afraid to dunk and he had to take something off. And if you're an athlete, you know, you try to go hard all the time, man. You know, there is no holding back. So just knowing that you have to kind of hold back is going to lead to you. It's going to lead to you holding back. It's going to affect your play. Tiger Woods, y'all. So Tiger Woods was so dominant in Augusta. I mean, just completely owned it. That essentially they Tiger-proofed the course. Making everything a little bit harder to match up for all the, you know, the physical abilities of Tiger Woods. And it was, you know, Tiger Woods, other golfers coming after him had, you know, they had more power. You know, as generations are going, they're getting better technology and better power. So, you know, I think they tried to account for that. But they just made it so hard. And you had golfers like, I think it was Jim Furyk. Jim Furyk, who said, you know, the course isn't even fun anymore. You know, they just pushed it so hard and they pushed the limits so hard. This is not even enjoyable, and it's almost like a task playing it. You know, and that says a lot for somebody who's like a professional golfer, because you would think like, you know, well, a course is a course, right? No, not after Tiger Woods ran through it. So, and the list keeps going. There's more. There's more athletes who are literally so good and so far ahead of their time that the leagues made rules to prevent them from being so good. We're going to look at Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson, he was a St. Louis pitcher. He had a dominant season with a 1.12 ERA in 1968. 1.12 ERA. Dude, that's just rock solid. Like, if you had a pitcher like that today, he would own the team. He would just own the team. And he only used 2 pitches, right? A fastball and a low dropping curve. The drop in the curve made it almost unhittable. So MLB decided to lower the pitcher's mound from 15 inches to 10 inches, resulting in less of a drop. So this dude's stuff was so nasty, right? It was so nasty that it would drop. I mean, it would probably hit it the catcher's knees or something, right? Right before it went to the batter. And MLB said, no, dude, nobody can hit this guy. He's just too dominant. So what do they do? Oh, let's just lower the mound. I mean, think about it. They're going in and they're changing these rules. They're changing these rules because people are so good. You know, that they to me, that doesn't make sense. And you see it. And now it's starting to make sense with Simone Biles, right? Because, granted, these all may be U.S. based, but it doesn't change from human nature. When somebody's too good, you become the villain, right? When you're too good at anything, when you're on top for too long, whatever it is, the hero becomes the villain, right? Let's look at George Mikan. George Mikan was the first true big man to play in the NBA, but in college, they went after him. All right, George Mikan was a giant. I think it was 7'7". I have to look up the stats, and I'm not too sure. But he had multiple changes in the NCAA made just due to his size. One of them, goaltending. So, imagine you being literally the biggest guy in the court, your head above everybody, and you stand in the middle, right in front of the basket, and you just jump up and block shots before they go in. So they created the goaltending rule to prevent him from, just basically knocking all the shots. I mean, if you think about it, most of the players now in the NBA, they could jump up and knock a shot away. So if there was no such thing as goaltending, it'd be a pretty interesting game, right? Like 3-pointers wouldn't be nothing anymore. You would have to box out. Oh my God, you'd have to play physical. You can't do that. So they made a rule, and they changed against goaltending, and they also widened the lane from 6 feet to 12 feet to keep Micah from posting in. So they had like the 3 in the key, which is basically 3 seconds. You can't stand within the key, and if it's only 6 feet, he could just take a step and step back in. Right? If they make it 12 feet, they double it. It makes him get out of the key a little more and build some opening for some offense. But this again, this is creating rules because there's one athlete that is so much better. Like, imagine if Jordan's points were only worth half, right? I lived in Cleveland, so I would take that. He's hurt the calf so many times. I still remember him jumping up in the air and kicking his leg while Craig Elo falls to the ground, man. Oh, it's painful. Can we show it? Oh, I don't want to see it, but it's there. I gotta see it. But hey, and speaking of goats, I had to say, Jordan is the GOAT in basketball. I love LeBron, but that's another podcast. Wayne Gretzky was such a force that when teams had offsetting penalties resulting in a 4-on-4 or 3-on-3 action, his Oilers were so proficient that it led the NHL to create a rule that offsetting penalties meant no side lost a player. So, I don't know if you got hockey. I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I kind of understand what they're saying. You get a penalty in hockey, 2 people get a penalty, they both go to the penalty box. That leaves a 4-on-4 situation, sometimes a 3-on-3. Gretzky was so dominant that doing that, it basically meant they're going to score every time multiple goals until the person comes out. So NHL created a rule saying that if there's offsetting penalties, both guys stay out. I guess Gretzky then held a press conference to bash the rule, and the following season the NHL reversed the rule. So, when you make a rule and the guy comes out and he calls you out on it, and he's somebody like Gretzky, right? That's people are going to listen. People are going to pay attention. Like, you know what? You're right, man. You're right. Speaking of GOAT, I got 2 more GOATs on this list. Now it's hard to say GOAT. I know everybody throws a GOAT around, but I gotta, it's like maybe a Mount Rushmore, right? Like there can't be like one great, just because everybody has different eras, Like Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, he suffered from being a big guy too, because not only was he big, he was also athletic. The dude could move, man. I don't know if you look at some of the old footage, he's moving up and down that court. It's amazing. It's like a young Shaq. Young Shaq used to be spry, So Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain was a victim of the rule change on a free throw shooting. So when you shoot a free throw, you're not allowed to leave the free throw line as the shooter until it touches the rim. So I guess back in Wilt's time, you shoot the free throw, and being the 51% free throw shooter, he would take that step in as soon as he shot, reach his arm up, and he's bigger than everybody. Reach his arm up, jump, grab the ball, and just dunk it in. You can imagine, when someone scores 100 points a game, yet alone he averages like 70 or something ridiculous. You can imagine why they made the rule changes. But then again, also, is it fair? You know what I mean? Is it fair if somebody's just that good? And I think if you just leave it for long enough, him being that good, then as humans, we like to try to figure things out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, right? You know what I mean? We'll put 4 or 5 guys on him, right? Take a charge. Something. There's something that you can figure out there. But when you start to nerf his natural ability and his talent just because he's better and bigger than everybody else, that's, I feel like that's crossing some sort of a line, man. It's not about competitive balance because it's professional sports. You want the best of the best. And you know what? Even if you say, well, that team would be better than everybody else, you know what happens? When Wilt Chamberlain shows up at another stadium, you know what happens? That stadium sells out. It's good for the brand. Especially back then, it was good for the brand. But no, they tried to nerf him. Which brings us to what some could call the GOAT in basketball. And there would be an argument there. It would be hard to argue against. But Lou Alcindor, the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, on the Mount Rushmore of basketball, no matter how you put it, if you don't put him 1, 2, 3, 4, he's there. He's somewhere. And if you don't put him up there, then you probably don't know anything about the game. But the reason why I rank this number 1 is because, to me, he symbolizes what a great athlete does when faced with adversity. So, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Lou Alcindor as he was, back in UCLA in college days, he was just dunking on everybody left and right. Uncontrollable. Dude could not be stopped. There was no defense you could put on him. There was nobody big enough, nobody strong enough, nobody athletic enough. He'd just dunk on you. It was that easy for him to turn, reach up, jump. Turn, reach up, jump. So, of course, the NCAA didn't look kindly on that because they have a brand to protect. They have people in their pocket that they have to keep going, but that's going to come to an end one day. You just watch. It's another podcast. But so much that the NBA decided to ban dunking. Seriously, they banned dunking. Can you imagine basketball without dunking? It'd be the WNBA. And I love and support the WNBA. But I think until they start dunking, it's going to suffer from some of this lack of activity. It's getting better with the handles. I see the handles. I see some of the games starting to transition to a more advanced game, and it's probably because the game has been allowed to evolve. Things take time to evolve. If you were to look at men's basketball back in 1955, it wouldn't fly today. Give things time, man. WNBA, it'll be there, man. It'll be there. Give us some time, man. Go get some tickets, man. So Lou Alcindor dunked on everybody, and essentially in 1967-1968 season, they announced that there would be a ban on dunking, that you would not be allowed to dunk in a game. Like, this reminds me of like those rec league games that they have, the intramural stuff. Like, yeah, no dunking. It's going to be a technical on you because they don't want to break the rim and have the people who pay for the gym, all the members who don't use the gym, but like 10 of them, have to pay for a new hoop. So for starting in the 1967-68 season, they banned dunking, and it lasted until 1976 and 1977. So you're talking almost 10 years in the NCAA that they banned dunking. You just weren't allowed to dunk. Like, there were guys who were probably in practice yamming and dunking, and you have coaches telling them, you know what? It's never going to do nothing in the game. Don't bother. Don't bother learning it. Seriously, like, this is one of the prime examples to me that show, like, look, just because somebody's bigger, stronger, and can jump higher than somebody else, you want to try to punish that talent. But the great part of the story is, because Lou Alcindor was not allowed to dunk, what did he do? He didn't quit basketball. He didn't fight about it. He formed the most iconic shot in basketball history, the sky hook. Yes, the sky hook. The sky hook was born because the NCAA said, you know what, Kareem? You know what, Lou Alcindor? You can't dunk. You're not allowed. And you know what he said? Sky hook! Yes. Yes, one of the most iconic shots ever was born out of adversity because they told him he couldn't do something. And just when he could have folded, you know what he did? He found a way to rise above it. Eventually, they changed the rule. He was already gone. He was to the NBA by that time, right? I think he was with the Bucks, right? So you know what? It didn't matter as much. But because of that, the hook shot was born. And it's still one of the most unstoppable shots in basketball. You know, I'm 42 years old. If I go to the court, I'm going to throw a hook shot a couple of times because I can't jump no more, right? But I can hook it off the glass, right? I learned from Kareem and Timmy. You know, Tim Duncan on the glass. Whoa, man. The boy's like a geometry major, I'm telling you. But, you know, that kind of impressed me that Lou Alcindor was able to look at the scenario and find a way around it. And still, you know, they took his bread and butter. And I think it was Coach Wooden, and it's one of his quotes that he was even saying, that if it wasn't for them banning dunking, he never would have formed a skyhook. He never would have formed that ability to do that because it would have been so easy to just turn and dunk. He built to that adversity. He took that adversity and he built on his game and he worked on it. And man, and then, you know, and not just because of that, but he deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of basketball because look at the stats, look at the play, look at everything. We'll talk about that another day. So I kind of want to wrap this up with my final thoughts. I started talking off about Simone Biles and whether I felt as if she was cheated. And by looking back through history and just how things are done, I absolutely believe that the International Federation of Gymnasts have cheated her and that they have caused some of this stress upon her, knowing that she's not going to be fairly judged upon her moves and accurately given what she deserves. And then let's talk about the amount of pressure that is put on what is essentially kids. You know, they would be kids in college and now have the weight of a whole country on them that if she decides that this is too much for her, she gets death threats and all these probably far right, maybe some left, right? Or all of these people telling her what she should and shouldn't do. And that's what I find appalling. And that's what I don't even want to address because, you know what, it's not up to me. It's not up to my decision. I don't have anything to do with it. I support whatever she decides to do because she's deciding to do it. But I wanted to look at one of the interesting parts of the story that I don't think is getting enough credit, and that's the fact that she's being unfairly treated. And there are some quotes that have not even racial overtones, but straight up racial comments from Russian coaches, from German coaches, about the abilities of black people and the advantages they have, and on top of the nationalistic tones that they have of speaking about America, that you can clearly see that the International Federation of Gymnasts does not have the best interest of gymnasts in mind, but they want to attack America and the fact that we foster talent from everybody. If you got talent, if you're the best of the best, then give us your best and we're going to promote you, right? And we are attacked and our athletes are attacked because of that and not given fair due. And to me, that's the biggest problem. I think that caused some of this issue that we're facing with. And if not, it definitely has something to do with it. And I feel like the unjust treatment, the unfair judging is not getting enough attention, and there needs to be some sort of investigation. And as dominant as America is in gymnastics as of late, if they're not willing to work with us on this here, if they're not willing to support us and treat us fairly, then maybe it's time we need to think about protesting it. So this is the Smokin Joe radio show. Make sure you hit the like. Make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. All the latest videos coming out. There's also a Smokin Joe radio show after hours where it's not safe for work content and kind of whatever happens, right? It's just we turn on the mics and we just go. I got my buddy Billy Valentine on there. So make sure you check that out. So hit the like, subscribe, and share. And I appreciate you being here. Check.